Taken TV is making TV watchable again. Join us on the Active Kingdom Entertainment Network. Download Taken TV from your App Store now.
Hi, I'm Joe Sweeney. I founded the Acervo Project in response to the growing epidemic of human trafficking and child exploitation. Classifying this as an epidemic is an understatement. Our investigation teams and cyber analysts are tracking child predators every day. We're making a difference, but we need your help.
From the heart of our nation's capital, here's Family Research Council President Tony Perkins.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to this Tuesday edition of Washington Watch. I'm Jody Heiss, a Senior Vice President here at the Family Research Council. Honored to be sitting in for Tony, who's taking some much-needed time off. And we're, of course, extremely honored and grateful to have your presence with us as well this evening. All right, coming up on this edition of Washington Watch.
A Fulton County grand jury returned a true bill of indictment, charging 19 individuals with violations of Georgia law arising from a criminal conspiracy to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election in this state.
Well, of course, that was District Attorney of Georgia's Fulton County, Fani Willis, late last night, announcing the latest indictment of former President Donald Trump, as well as 18 others. I'll discuss this in detail in the program with Matt Whitaker, a former acting attorney general in the Trump administration. And today is a day, quite frankly, that the Biden administration is hoping the people of America and the world will forget. It's the second anniversary of the fall of Kabul following the botched withdrawal from Afghanistan. But do you remember what President Biden claimed in the months leading up to the fall? Well, let me remind you.
Will not conduct a hasty rush to the exit. We'll do it responsibly, deliberately, and safely.
Is a Taliban takeover of Afghanistan now inevitable?
No, it is not. The likelihood there's going to be the Taliban overrunning everything and owning the whole country is highly unlikely.
Highly unlikely. Well, looking back, just how wrong was the president? I'll talk about that later in the program with retired Lieutenant General Jerry Boykin. And since President Biden drew no attention whatsoever to Afghanistan today, what did he focus on? Bidenomics.
Bidenomics is just another way of saying restoring the American dream. That's the base. That's what it is. Just restoring the American dream.
Wow. Well, that was President Biden discussing the economy in Milwaukee. Seems to me like Bidenomics has done more to become an American nightmare rather than American dream. But the president claims that Bidenomics is working. But do American families agree? Well, we'll be discussing this here in just a few moments with Congressman Ron Estes of Kansas, who serves on the House Ways and Means Committee. And as we continue to pray for those affected by the Maui wildfires, our friends from Samaritan's Purse arrived today bringing some 18 tons of emergency relief equipment. What an amazing organization. We'll get an update later in the program from them. So we have a packed show, as always, with you this evening. And as a reminder, the website is tonyperkins.com. So if you happen to miss any portion of today's program, or if you'd like to just simply archive and check out some previous programs, you can do it all right there at tonyperkins.com. Also, a wealth of information available for you there and resources. So check it out, tonyperkins.com. All right, President Biden spoke in Milwaukee today, continuing his Bidenomics tour. And this comes even as inflation on his watch has caused hardworking American families to spend an additional $700 a month just to maintain the standard of living that they had 2 years ago. Does the president's messaging match the experience of working families? Well, joining me now to discuss this is Congressman Ron Estes. He serves on the House Committee on Ways and Means, as well as the Budget Committee and the Committee on Education and Workforce. He represents the 4th Congressional District of Kansas. Congressman, great to see you again. Welcome to Washington Watch.
Hi, Jody. It's great to see you again. Thanks for having me on.
Well, it's always an honor. I miss you. It's great to have you here with us. All right, listen, I want to jump into Bidenomics and get your opinion on that. But obviously, the big news of the day is the indictment against President Trump. Just real quickly, before we get into Bidenomics, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it really is a politically motivated, driven indictment. I mean, you know the people that are involved in Georgia more than I do, but obviously it's been 2.5 years since the election. If they were trying to do something, instead they waited till President Trump had announced for a re-election campaign, and it's shifted the focus away from the fires, the cities burning up in Maui, shifted the focus away from the second-year anniversary of Afghanistan and the failures there and the pullout there. It's just kind of indication of how wrong the president has been on so many things. I mean, he talks about Bidenomics being something good, but just like he was wrong on inflation, he was wrong talking about that he wasn't involved in Hunter Biden's business dealings, that he says that Biden inflation's helpful for Americans. And that's not the story that we're seeing. As you said, individuals are paying $700 more per month. Literally what that means, if you look at the inflation since President Biden came into office, it's the equivalent of taking 2 months' paycheck out of everybody's pockets to buy the same goods and services, the same rent, same car payment, the same groceries. It's really an impact and it's a burden on people.
Well, it really is, and that is the reality of what's going on. You know, I saw earlier today a report that credit card balances have topped $1 trillion for the first time ever. I mean, that in itself says that Bidenomics is being more harmful. It's doing more harm than good, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. And one of the things they touted about that in last month's report was that the GDP grew, but it grew because of more grocery purchases being put on credit card balances. So people are having to use their credit cards to actually buy groceries to feed themselves. And that just adds more and more burden. And that means that you have to pay that out over time. We're seeing stories here in Kansas where people don't have the money to buy the same back to school supplies that they need. And of course, gas prices, we've seen them. Normally gas prices go up leading into summer, and then after July 4th, they start to taper off. But now they're starting to rise back again. We're seeing that. The credit card pricing, as you said, is a tremendous burden. And it's an impact that takes money out of people's pockets, and they don't have the money to actually pay for the things that they need.
Yeah, and even the gas prices, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, as you well know, was utilized when probably it should not have been to try to get the prices of gasoline down. Well, now we've used up a significant portion of that reserve, enough to where I'm hearing it's going to take decades to refill it. And so kind of that spigot is being shut off and gas prices going right back up. But let's continue here. The credit card debt just from April to June, it went up $45 billion, as you're referencing. I mean, that's 4% just in that short period of time. And as we mentioned, going over $1 trillion. And yet, and I want to, I couldn't help but just shake my head in wonder with the president today saying that Bidenomics is just another way of saying restoring the American dream. I mean, it's troubling news, reality of what's happening. What are your thoughts on him making that kind of a statement?
Yeah, it really is. It's indicative that he doesn't understand what's going on. And like I said earlier, he was wrong when he talked about inflation wasn't going to be a problem with all the government spending that he started. He was wrong in saying it was going to be an easy pull out of Afghanistan and that Taliban wouldn't take over. He's wrong in saying that he wasn't going to be involved in hadn't been involved in Hunter Biden's business dealings. And now we're seeing the consequences of the pocketbook impacts that are affecting Americans. The cost of inflation and actually real wages being down because of that impact on them.
Yeah, and more troubling news, and you're hitting all over it, but I also saw that people are using, for hardship reasons, using their 401k accounts This is just another sign. I want to play Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said something on CNN. I want to play this real quickly. Clip 11, please. Let's get that. I want to get your reaction to this.
Over 70% of Americans say that they're very comfortable with their financial situation. So they seem to perceive the economy as a whole as doing less well than they are personally. But most Americans feel good about their own economic situation.
I'm not aware of most Americans feeling good about their financial situation. What kind of? I'm not seeing the poll that she's referring to. Do you have any idea?
I have no idea what poll she could be referring to. I mean, nothing I've seen ever says anything like that Americans are comfortable. The polls I see is a majority of people that are uncomfortable with their economic situation in terms of the amount of money they have in their pocketbook and their concern for the growth in the economy, concern for their future well-being. And you talked about, you mentioned about 401ks. I mean, the statistics coming out now that there's more and more hardship withdrawals coming out of 401k accounts, which means people can't afford to save for their retirement because they're having to spend that money today for the things that they need. And I just don't understand it. The whole administration seems to just miss the boat on so many things. And it's unfortunate because the American people end up suffering because of that.
Yeah, and the president actually inherited a pretty good situation apart from COVID. The economy had been moving strongly forward and inflation was down, and they have just gone the opposite direction. I want to shift gears because Congressman Ron Estes, you have been such a leader on issues like this ever since you came to Congress. But you have joined some other colleagues of yours and have launched a bipartisan fiscal reform effort. What are you hoping to accomplish? What is this, and what do you hope to come from it?
Yeah, well, as we all know, I mean, the information's out there. Our national debt is large, it's looming, and it continues to grow. And it's because this continuing overspending of the revenue. And there is no money tree in Washington, D.C. And so what we're seeing, and there's some Democrats and some Republicans that are out there actively taking a role of looking at what do we do going forward? Because this is not sustainable. This is not something that we should want to leave to our kids and grandkids. And so we understand that the country and economy continues to grow, and there's a need to make some prudent investments, but it doesn't make sense to just spend willy-nilly more than what you have coming in. And what we've seen continuously is more and more programs that are not just continuing to grow, but continue to increase each year. So we've got to make some hard decisions on let's not spend more money year over year. Let's look at freezing. Maybe we should freeze our spending for a couple of years, or maybe even one of the things that we're advocating for the fiscal 2024 budget is let's spend at the fiscal 2022 level. That was only a year and a half ago that we were spending at the fiscal 22 level. It wasn't bad times. It was actually pretty good. There was a lot of good things that were being done then. And we'd save over $130 billion if we just spend at the same rate that we were spending at, less than a year and a half ago. So that's the focus that we need to have. And the group's trying to work on different ideas. Obviously, there's issues ranging from discretionary spending, whether it's defense or whether it's health and human services. There's also a lot of programs that are, automatic spending programs that, we've got to figure out ways to get past the political rhetoric around Medicare and Social Security, because those are programs that we pay into. And we pay in, but we don't pay in enough.
We're going to wrap. We're going to have to stop right there. Hard break coming up. Congressman Ron Estes from Kansas, thank you for joining us. And friends, coming up next, we'll jump into the indictments against President Trump. Stay tuned. We'll be back after the break.
In recent years, Christians have seen an accelerated assault on not just our core beliefs, but their very foundation. Now is the time to build on that foundation, strengthen our faith, and learn how to translate our beliefs into actions that engage the culture around us. That's the purpose behind this year's Pray, Vote, Stand Summit. Believe and engage. Pray Vote Stand Summit is a national gathering of spiritually active, governance-engaged conservatives, or SageCons. We'll hear from Christian leaders, worldview experts, government officials, and more. We'll discuss important issues like the sanctity of life, religious freedom, protecting students, strengthening families, praying for our nation, and how you can impact America's future from a biblical worldview. Together, we can believe and engage. Join us September 15th through 17th in Washington, D.C. for this pivotal event. Register now at PrayVoteStand.org.
Everything we do begins as an idea. Before there can be acts of courage, there must be the belief that some things are worth sacrificing for. Before there can be marriage, there is the idea that man should not be alone. Before there was freedom, there was the idea that individuals are created equal. It's true that all ideas have consequences, but we're less aware that all consequences are the fruit of ideas. Before there was murder, there was hate. Before there was a Holocaust, there was the belief by some people that other people are undesirable. Our beliefs determine our behavior, and our beliefs about life's biggest questions determine our worldview. Where did I come from? Who decides what is right and wrong? What happens when I die? Our answers to these questions explain why people see the world so differently. Debates about abortion are really disagreements about where life gets its value. Debates over sexuality and gender and marriage are really disagreements about whether the rules are made by us or for us. What we think of as political debates are often much more than that. They're disagreements about the purpose of our lives and the source of truth. As Christians, our goal must be to think biblically about everything. Our goal is to help you see beyond red and blue, left and right, to see the battle of ideas at the root of it all. Our goal is to equip Christians with a biblical worldview and help them advance and defend the faith in their families, communities, and the public square. Cultural renewal doesn't begin with campaigns and elections. It begins with individuals turning from lies to truth. But that won't happen if people can't recognize a lie and don't believe truth exists. We want to help you see the spiritual war behind the political war, the truth claims behind the press release, and the forest from the trees.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to Washington Watch. Hope you're having a fantastic day. I'm your host, Jody Heiss, filling in this evening for Tony, and we are honored to have you on board with us. All right, yesterday, an Atlanta grand jury indicted former President Donald Trump and 18 others, accusing them of criminally conspiring to overturn the 2020 elections.
The indictment alleges that rather than abide by Georgia's legal process for election challenges, the defendants engaged in a criminal racketeering enterprise to overturn Georgia's presidential election result.
Well, that was District Attorney of Georgia's Fulton County, Fani Willis, making the announcement last night. And this is the fourth indictment of the former president, and it carries a potential sentence of 5 to 20 years. So what's behind these specific charges? And with a former president currently in a commanding lead for the Republican presidential primary, what can we expect from here? Well, joining me now by phone to break this down further is Matt Whitaker. He is the co-chair of the Center for Law and Justice at the America First Policy Institute, and he's a former acting attorney general for then President Trump. Matt, welcome to Washington Watch. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, Jody. Good to be with you, my friend.
Well, thank you. All right, Matt, listen, let's try to break this down. Let's begin just with your initial reactions to the indictment last night. Yeah, I mean, it's obviously, I think, a little surprising how broad, the prosecutor went. I think, you probably know as well as anybody that this prosecutor is looking for political fame and trying to promote her own political career, and has put together as I've dug into it deeper, a pretty flimsy document. I mean, I'll just give you one example. Your former colleague, Mark Meadows, is charged with
the conspiracy, the RICO offense, which is usually used against criminal organizations for asking for somebody's phone number. I was a little rattled by that when I read the indictment. And so those are, I just think that, this famously, and you know American history, but I think Lincoln once called someone's argument as, thin as a suit made from the shadow of a sparrow that had died from starvation. I think that's kind of what we're dealing with right now in this indictment.
Yes, it kind of, I wasn't sure how to really respond to this whole thing of racketeering. The former president and others were charged, as you mentioned, with the RICO violation. Walk us through this. What does this mean? And why would the Fulton County DA use this particular charge?
Yeah. So, typically a racketeering organization or, kind of a RICO offense is a big criminal organization. If you think about it, almost like a criminal company, that does, robs banks, murders people, threatens, does kind of, crimes across the board in furtherance of the business of crime. And in this case, from everything I've read and what I know about it so far, is it looks like they pretty much just went after anybody that asked questions about the, voter, voting machines integrity, the what was happening, did any kind of investigation into, the Georgia election in 2020. There's just going to be a lot more, I think, that comes out on this, especially evidence-wise, and I think we're going to be surprised how much there's not a lot there when you get to the bottom of it.
Well, what do you say to our viewers and listeners who remember ever how long it was, 4 years, whatever it was, Democrat politicians in the same scenario to be accused of conspiring to overturn an election? This is not just something new that's happened in this past election cycle. Democrats have complained about this type of outcome with elections in the past themselves. What would be the difference?
I don't remember the specific facts and circumstances of, for example, Stacey Abrams and her believing that she won the election, but it's very similar to that. Again, people were trying to put together what happened and, whether there were not just irregularities, but whether there was, fraud or malfeasance. And they kind of each kind of pursued different avenues. And so that's, from what I can tell, a lot of what they've piled into this conspiracy. And, the thing about RICO that's very interesting to me and how it's being used by this prosecutor is, it's not limited to the state of Georgia or Fulton County. They have, they're bringing in anything anybody alleged to have done nationwide. It seems to just be such a broad, reaching indictment for, just one local elected DA. It's going to be very interesting how this plays out over the course of the following months.
Well, if we can switch topics in just a couple of minutes that we have remaining. Sure. Earlier this week, Hunter Biden's attorney said that he is confident that there will be no new charges filed against Hunter. Here we go with the special counsel. Why would he say something like that?
Yeah, that's wishful, wishing and hoping. But, at the same time, they appear to continue to be blowing statute of limitations into the benefit of Hunter Biden. All these tax years are kind of falling off the back end, and he can't be charged for those, and he can't resurrect them. And so I think that, this special counsel, and I said it, earlier this week, is just appears to be kind of part of a chess move that, Merrick Garland is just trying to do all he can to outrun this case and to never have Hunter Biden see justice because, he just keeps adding to it. It's been going on for 5 years, the investigation. And a lot of, the biggest tax years and the felonies that should have been charged have already fallen away in 2014 and 2015. So, I'm very concerned that, Weiss, who tried to cut this sweetheart deal in the first place, is ever going to do anything that, brings Hunter to justice for all the influence peddling and corruption that he really was the center of.
Less than 30 seconds. Are you concerned that we may be watching a two-tiered system of justice?
We have a two-tier system of justice. There's no doubt. I mean, we have a weaponization of not only the Department of Justice, but Democrat-elected prosecutors, Jody, and I just think that's it's not going to be good for our republic, and I worry about the long-term.
Very concerning. We're going to have to leave it there, yeah. Matt. Thank you so much, Matt Whitaker from America First Policy Institute.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. All right, friends, coming up, Samaritan's Purse has been airlifting supplies to those in need following the wildfires in Maui. And after the break, we'll get an update on their efforts and how you can pray. Stay tuned.
All of us are born with the desire to find truth and meaning. Where did I come from? What happens when I die? While our answers to these questions may divide us, we are united in our need for the freedom to answer life's biggest questions and make life's biggest decisions for ourselves. That's why religious freedom matters for everyone. Religious freedom matters because the powerful have long wanted to control those who are less powerful. Religious freedom matters because the freedom of those who are different is often threatened by those who believe different is dangerous. Leah Sheribu, a Christian teenager in Nigeria, remains a captive of Boko Haram for her refusal to renounce her Christian faith. Chinese pastor Wang Yi is serving a 9-year sentence for speaking publicly against the Chinese government. All of this because people in power decided different is dangerous. At the Center for Religious Liberty at Family Research Council, we promote religious freedom for everyone because the only alternative is religious freedom for no one. We encourage Americans and the American government to engage and advocate for the persecuted, and they do. We work every day to bring good news to the afflicted, to proclaim liberty to captives and freedom to prisoners. We do it because that's what Jesus does. We work to give freedom to others because we ourselves have been set free.
Welcome back to Washington Watch. I'm your host this Tuesday evening, Jody Heiss, and we're glad to have you joining us. Well, we all are continuing to follow the aftermath of the devastating wildfires in Maui as the death toll continues to rise and rise.
The recovery from this tragedy is proceeding, and it's proceeding extremely vigorously. The scale of destruction is incredible, so our hearts are broken even a little bit more than when we were together 48 hours ago with the extra fatalities.
Well, that was Hawaii Governor Josh Green providing an update late last night. And earlier today, our friends at Samaritan's Purse airlifted some 17 tons of emergency relief equipment to the island, along with some volunteers, including the Chief Operating Officer, Edward Graham. And they're ready to serve the affected families as they grapple with this severe destruction. Well, joining me now with an update on their efforts is Jason Kimak, Senior Director of North American Ministries for Samaritan's Purse. Jason, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Thanks for having me, Jody. I appreciate it. Well,
listen, we can't thank you. Samaritan's Purse, you guys are a phenomenal organization, but yet again showing just the tremendous work that you do, not only helping people in need, but taking the gospel to them. Let's begin with just what you're hearing, Jason, from Edward or the rest of the team.
Well, the situation as you know, the situation on the ground is dire. It's bad. It's there's a lot of emergency management is still looking for those who are missing, and it's just heartbreaking to hear the stories of people who have lost loved ones, and those who had to escape narrowly, and those who are living in shelters right now because they don't have a home anymore. And we're there on the ground, still assessing, and we're meeting with emergency management. And it's as I'm seeing the pictures now going through, it's just terrible to watch as there's so many people who are displaced.
Yeah, those pictures are emotional to look at. The devastation is beyond what any of us, if you're not there in person, can really even comprehend. But by talking to Edward and keeping track with what Samaritan's Purse will be doing, I understand that, among other things, your group, your organization, and volunteers will be sifting through a bunch of the ashes of former homes and businesses and so forth, but looking for some priceless items that may have survived the flames. No question, that has to be an extremely emotional endeavor. And I would just think having the presence of Samaritan's Purse, volunteers and representatives there representing the Lord Jesus while going through all of that will have to be an enormous comfort to these people.
It is. It's a very difficult thing to do this with families and our volunteers as they're sifting through the ashes. You know, typically we'll come in after a fire and we'll have, we will sift and we will look for items that are very important and precious to these families. And it's sad because everything they've had is gone. And it's anything that we can recover to help them have some memories, whether it's a photo or a ring or anything that survived that will help them have some memories from their family or from the past. It's incredibly emotional. And we also have chaplains from the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association that's on the ground as well. And as you said, we're there for the spiritual piece as well. And so we're there to help them find things, but the most important part is we're there to help them on the spiritual side. So we have chaplains we had 10 that actually live in Hawaii and are on the ground now, and they're visiting shelters, and they are just spending time with people. They're loving on them. They're praying with them, and they're sharing the hope of Jesus Christ with them as well.
That's fantastic. Well, I know it's not an effort like this is not just left in the arms of Samaritan's Purse. You are also there collaborating with a lot of local pastors, which there are quite a few. How does that work? How does a team put together and work with these other pastors, and what are you hearing from them right now?
Well, some of our first contacts on the ground are the local pastors. We partner with the local church in what we do. So some of our first phone calls are to the local pastors. And so we meet with them. Even this Sunday, some of our staff members were at some of these churches, just spending time with the families, praying with them, singing with them. And it was even in the midst of this devastation, they were still praising the Lord and reaching out to their communities. And so when we partner with the local churches, they come and we want to help them because they're the ones who are in this community. They're the ones when we leave that are still going to be here for these people. And so we're here to empower them and work with those who want to volunteer and bring volunteers in from around the country as well. And that's to help these hurting people and but also be there for the spiritual care as well.
Well, only the Lord and his children at times like this can turn beauty from ashes and make that transition. And we're so grateful that you're here. As we wrap up, Jason, I think it would be great for our viewers and listeners just to hear from you how they can support the ministry and the work that you're doing and how they can be specifically praying right now.
Well, right now, our DC-8 cargo plane is actually getting unloaded as I speak here in Maui. And so with all of those supplies and equipment that's getting out, I would ask for you to pray. That's the number one thing. And I know Edward said that last week. We believe in the power of prayer. And the Lord asks us to pray, and so we're going to do it. And he is the one that's going to encourage and help everyone during this time of need. But I'm also asking you to go to SamaritansPurse.org if you'd like to volunteer or see how you can help out. Go to SamaritansPurse.org.
We've got to wrap up, Jason. All right. Thank you, Jason Kimack, Samaritan's Purse. All right, friends, coming up, it's 2-year anniversary since the fall of Kabul. We'll bring all that your way right after the break. Stay tuned.
It begins here, and here, and here. Every day. Before you stand, you need solid ground. Standing in a culture that wants you to surrender the truth won't work unless you have a firm foundation. At Family Research Council, we have that firm foundation, and you can find us standing. We stand for the value of all human life. We stand for the right of families to flourish. And every day we stand for your freedom to believe and to live out those beliefs both at home and abroad. We work with government officials, educating them on the issues from a biblical worldview. And when necessary, we hold them accountable. We equip Christians across America to be informed and to take action in their communities. With our daily radio program, television appearances, and vast online presence, we reach people where they are. We envision an America where all human life is valued, families flourish, and religious liberty thrives. And that won't be realized if we're not standing. Stand for faith. Stand for family. Stand for freedom. Stand with us at FRC.
I'm often asked by people, Tony, how do you stay encouraged? How do you deal with all of the stuff in Washington, D.C., the negative policies that are attacking our faith, our family, and our freedoms? Well, you want me to let you in on the secret? It's called the Word of God. And that is why the Family Research Council embarked on Stand on the Word, a 2-year journey through the Bible. It's a chronological Bible reading plan with just 10 to 15 minutes a day. In 2 years, you will have covered the entire Bible. And to go along with this, Monday through Friday, I do a morning devotional that goes along with the reading of the day. It's all designed to encourage you on this journey because the Word of God, as the psalmist said, in my affliction, here's my comfort. Your Word gives me life. That is our source of strength. To find out more, go to tonyperkins.com or frc.org/Bible. And I invite you to join me every morning for our Stand on the Word Bible devotion.
This fall, believers from across America will gather in our nation's capital. We'll hear from government leaders, policy experts, and leading Christian voices, learning how we can engage in government at every level, from local school boards to state legislatures to Congress and even the White House, to win back the soul of our nation. Join with us for the Pray, Vote, Stand Summit, Believe and Engage, September 15th through 17th. Register now at PrayVoteStand.org. FRC, celebrating 40 years with Roger and Janice Bowers.
No question about it, and whatever FRC has done in the past and will continue to do in the future, they do it with excellence, integrity, and a God-honoring focus, and that means all the world to us, and that's why we continue to support them.
Well, if it weren't for incredible partners like Roger and Janice, where would FRC be? I want to thank each of you who are a part of this incredible organization, and also want to extend a very heartfelt invitation for you to join us in September 15th through 17th in Washington, D.C. for this year's Pray, Vote, Stand Summit, as we will be celebrating 40 years of standing for faith, family, and freedom. Friends, registration is open now, and we look forward to seeing you there. Simply go to PrayVoteStand.org for more details and to register. And it's going to be an incredible, incredible event. Hope to see you there. All right, today marks the second anniversary of the fall of Kabul following the Biden administration's disastrous and chaotic withdrawal of our U.S. forces in Afghanistan. And this came, by way of reminder, this came after 20 years and more than $1 trillion that the United States invested in that country. And since that day, tragically, the Taliban has persecuted thousands of people in that country, many of them simply due to their faith. Well, joining me now to discuss this, as well as his reflections on this also being the anniversary of a gunman's attack on FRC 11 years ago. Well, joining me now is retired Lieutenant General Jerry Boykin, who serves as our Executive Vice President at FRC. As you well know, he spent the last 4 years of his 36-year military career serving as the Deputy Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence, and he was also one of the original members of the U.S. Army's Delta Force. General, always great to see you, my friend. Welcome back to Washington Watch.
Thank you so much, Jody. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Well, you have called this withdrawal, I've heard you say it before, as the largest foreign policy failure in American history. And the Biden administration still doesn't admit that it was a failure at all. In fact, for the longest, they tried to claim this was some sort of success right afterwards, although it's true, they're not using that word much anymore. In fact, I want to play this clip for you and get your reaction. This was an exchange that one reporter had with the State Department spokesman Matthew Miller last week. Please play clip 6.
Do you still believe that this was a success? Because they have a real hard time when the administration calls this withdrawal a success. Do you still believe it was a success?
We believe it was the correct policy choice.
All right, the correct policy choice, not saying success any longer. What were your thoughts, General?
You know, first of all, I don't agree with it, and I think everybody knows that. But the thing about this is, when you have an administration that has senior people that don't think for themselves, that just follow along like little lemmings, you're bound to have a situation like this. And I think that's what happened. The Biden administration does not have any leadership. And the president thinks that he is the only leader, really, in this administration, I think. And as a result of that, his people followed along with some, I would say, even ridiculous ideas like closing the airfield there at Bagram, which was a very useful place for them during this evacuation. And as a result of that, you get people like the guy you just had on there that are not thinking for themselves, and the president is therefore not listening to them.
Well, it's either not thinking or it's just trying to spin everything to deceive the American people into believing something that simply is not reality. I know there's a watchdog group out there that documents waste and fraud and abuse and all that sort of stuff, but specifically as it related to the U.S. spending in Afghanistan. The Biden administration provided over $2 billion of taxpayer dollars to Afghanistan since the Taliban took control of the government. I mean, shouldn't we be concerned that we as Americans are the #1 patron of the Taliban? I mean, something about this just smells like a rat to me.
Yeah, well, stop and think about what $2 billion would do for certain sectors of our society, like the homeless, like those that are hooked on drugs and need to be in a program to help get them off of the drugs. There's so many things we could do with that, yet we're squandering it. We're literally squandering it, and that's bad enough, but nobody can explain to us what we hope to achieve by putting that kind of money into wasteful projects like this.
Well, and giving it to the Taliban of all places. I mean, what accountability is there of what they're even doing with the money? The whole thing just reeks with question marks. I'll put it that way for me. And after all, I mean, we've had a presence, you heavily involved. We had a presence there for some 20 years. What would you say to the service members, General, and their families who feel that all their efforts were simply wasted while being over there?
I would simply say, look, my heart hurts for what I've seen in that part of the world, or what I've seen our American leadership do. And for those of you who fought there and lost friends there and all I can say to you at this point is, I am sorry. I really am sorry. And I will do, if there's anything that I can do, I will try to do something to make it right. And what I will do to make it right is when I go to the poll, I'm going to vote for someone who cares about our military. It may be a write-in. I don't think so, but it could be. But I'm going to vote for someone that really cares about our military and understands the importance of a ready military in our society.
Pray, vote, stand. That's what we've got to do. Let me switch to another topic. I was reading earlier today about the JCPOA, commonly known the Iran deal, the nuclear deal. And the Biden administration recently negotiated to unfreeze $6 billion in Iranian assets, and there were 5 Americans who would be released in exchange for that. And don't misunderstand me in any way. I want all of them to come home. All right, we want them to come home. But what kind of a negotiation with this $6 billion in exchange well, let me just get your reaction to that.
Hey, they're playing us like a fiddle. And since you're from Georgia, you know what a fiddle is, and you know the difference between that and a violin. It is not a violin. They're playing us like a fiddle. And just think back when during the Obama administration, remember the image of that plane load of American money all stacked up. It looked like a cartel operation out of somewhere in South America, you know, and they were trading money back to the Taliban for some of our hostages. And you just think about that. When I came into the Delta Force in 1978, we had people from the State Department that came down to help us, especially to help us in terms of policy associated with counterterrorism. And the first thing they told us is, we don't negotiate with terrorists. We do not negotiate with terrorists. And I heard that over and over and over. It was a good policy. Now, I want those people back as well. But America never comes out a winner in these kinds of negotiations. And that's where you've got to have strong leadership that has established that leadership, and people understand that leadership that a strong leader would bring to this administration or to this country. So that's why I say we've got to have strong leadership here unless we're willing to accept the status quo, and we're going to see this kind of nonsense go on for a long time until we finally get a leader in the White House, in the military, and in those places where leaders have to step up and do everything they can to keep America as the number one superpower in the nation, and also to protect our people wherever they may be.
Yeah, and negotiating with terrorists, that was a policy. I remember that. I remember hearing that over and over and over. And that, in essence, is what we've just done, isn't it?
It is indeed exactly what we've just done. And where does that get you? Where does that take you? You know, if you remember, I was part of the Iran rescue attempt back in 24th of April, 1980. And ultimately, because we failed there to rescue those people when we went into Iran, and we actually lost 8 men ourselves, it came down to a negotiation. And that was the first time that I can remember that there was actually a negotiation for hostages. There may have been some others that I was not aware of, but that's the first one. And I tell you, all of us on that mission, we hurt deeply. I mean, we hurt deeply because, number one, we had failed. But number two, we knew that a precedent had been set that was going to create more hostage taking because it was now profitable. More hostage taken now because it was fashionable to take hostages and then ransom them for money. And that's exactly what we have now. And it's a sad, sad thing for me.
It's sad, it's frightening to see where this potentially can take us. I'd like to get your opinion on an assessment that came from Congressman Mike McCall. Of course, he's the chair of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. But he was this past Sunday on Fox News Sunday, and he had this to say. Clip 8, please.
We have to go in eyes wide open. $6 billion that now is going to go into Iran and prop up their proxy war terror operations and their nuclear bomb aspirations. I think we're going back to the mistakes of the past.
Is that what they're going to do with that $6 billion?
I don't think there's any question that they are. That's exactly what they're going to do. And they're going to, I don't think he said was they're going to use it to develop more missiles, to enhance their missile program. because you got, not only are they only probably, if they wanted to be, less than a couple of months away from having a warhead that has been enriched to the point of being a nuclear warhead, but then you got to have the delivery devices, and those, and generally speaking, are missiles, and they have been working actively on trying to have missiles that they can deliver nuclear warheads with. So I think that's exactly what they're going to do. So you stop and think about it. We are funding our own demise. Does that make sense? What's the logic of that? You didn't see the previous president do anything that stupid with this bunch of people. And make no mistake, there is no way these people will ever be our friends, not with the mullahs in there. The Iranian people are actually good people. But don't ever make the mistake of thinking that we can make friends and expect them to make promises that they will keep, because they do not have a history of that. In fact, it is quite the contrary. They've made a lot of promises which have not been fulfilled, and that's what we're going to see again unless we get some leadership going.
And a lot can be done with $6 billion in their hands. If I can, let me switch gears with you, General. Today also marks not only the 2-year anniversary of the botched withdrawal in Afghanistan, but it also marks 11 years since a domestic terrorist attempted a mass murder at the Family Research Council headquarters here in Washington, D.C. And the gunman actually shot one of our staff in the building lobby just a few floors below where we all sit now. So as you reflect back on this day in that regard, what are some of your thoughts?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this all day. First of all, the guy's name was Floyd Lee Corkins, and he was an advocate for the LGBT community, and he claimed to the judge that he was there to kill as many of us as possible, and then he was going to force us to put a Chick-fil-A sandwich in our mouth. And this was an evil, demented man. But he said that he targeted us because we were listed on the Southern Poverty Law Center's hate map as a organization that hated homosexuals. That is not the truth. There's no way. But the guy that was the real hero that day was our building manager, Leo Johnson. And that man, he grows larger than life the longer he lives, because some people will come in and want to know, where's the guy that got shot here? And we were proud to tell them that this man saved a lot of lives that day. Make no mistake, had it not been for Leo Johnson, there would have been some others that would have been killed that day. And by the way, as a final thought, the Southern Poverty Law Center, even though Floyd Corkins was locked up for, I think, 25 years, Southern Poverty Law Center has never apologized to us for being targeted because of their hate map. And that says a lot about their character.
It really does. Well, there's no question in my mind but that the good hand of God was all over FRC in the building that day. And Leo Johnson, you're right. What an amazing man. I get in early when I go to the office, as you do as well. Leo was always in there making coffee for all of us, among other things. He's just a fantastic individual. But thank God for the Lord's incredible protection on FRC. General Boykin, as always, thank you so much for your leadership, and thank you for joining me today on Washington Watch.
It's good to be with you. Thanks.
All right, friends, that wraps up another edition of this Tuesday evening of Washington Watch. Hope you have a great evening. Keep the torch ablaze. Pray, vote, stand. And we'll see you tomorrow with more here on Washington Watch.
Washington Watch with Tony Perkins is brought to you by Family Research Council and is entirely listener-supported. Portions of the show discussing candidates are brought to you by Family Research Council Action. For more information on anything you've heard today, or to find out how you can partner with us in our ongoing efforts to promote faith, family, and freedom, visit TonyPerkins.com. Also, to leave a comment about Washington Watch, call our watch line at 1-866-372-7234. That's 1-866-372-7234.
Over the last 20 years, with all your support, we've been able to not only launch the original MyPillow, but also the MyPillow mattress topper, Giza Dream bed sheets, My Slippers, and the MyPillow bath towels. But there's so much more. In fact, we have over 200 products, and I'm so confident that you'll love each and every one of them that when you go to MyPillow.com now, you'll immediately receive a free gift valued at $20 just for checking out the website. No purchase necessary. Get everything from MyPillow blankets, sleepwear, kitchen towels, mattresses, duvets, pet beds, body pillows, comforters, couch pillows, bathrobes, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products. And remember, just for checking out MyPillow.com, you'll immediately receive a free gift valued at $20. No purchase necessary. This is a limited time promotion, so go to MyPillow.com now.
Taken TV is making TV watchable again. Join us on the Active Kingdom Entertainment Network. Download Taken TV from your App Store now.